everybody, it's Mrs. Kent. I'm going to show you how to create your own HuckFin literary analysis in-class essay organizer. So let me start with a little story. When I was in my master's program, one of the first days of class, the professor walked in, gave us an assignment, and left. And we all were like, what is going on? Well, he didn't give us much direction, but that gave us a lot of creativity and a lot of allowance to do the things that we thought would make the project great. So I'm going to give you an ounce of that today. I'm not going to give you a graphic organizer to organize this because, well, it's December and you know how to write an essay. You know the basics, the introduction, the body paragraphs, the conclusion. So that being said, I'm going to give you a little bit of flexibility in creating all of your prep materials, but I want to make sure that you're on the right path. So here we go. First, make sure that you've completed the literary term scavenger hunt, because with all of that information, you're going to use it in your essay, and that will give you all the evidence and support you need for a solid essay. Make sure that you've gone through the steps of creating a thesis and identifying the tone that Mark Twain used with his language in the book. Those are all literary strategies that help him achieve his purpose. Then organize the materials into your own graphic organizer, which I'll go over in a minute. It could be a variety of things that help make the work make sense in your brain. Then you're going to conference with me about feedback on your writing in our writing conferences. Make sure that you watch this and then organize all your materials, and then you're going to write it, and it's due. It's all done in class, so get it done. Don't mess around. You're getting class participation points while we do this. Also, make sure to look at your writing record before you write your essay, because all of those tips and all of those comments and feedback help support your next endeavors in the writing process. The reason we have feedback is so that you will take it into consideration and make moves according to those statements, so that every time that you write, you get better at it. That's the goal. All right, so the prompt. You have to know what's expected of you, because even if you write a great essay, and I've gone over this time and time again, if you write a beautiful essay but it doesn't answer the prompt, you're going to fall off of the rubric, and that's not good. So, the prompt. How does Mark Twain's use of language convey his tone, theme, and purpose? Okay. So, it's not just his tone, it's not just his theme, it's not just his purpose. It's the tone, the theme, and the purpose that you have to explain. So know that. Okay, guess what? Remember that tone wheel? Here it is. I don't want to see anything from this interior segment. I want to see more secondary and tertiary levels here. So higher level words. Don't just give me, Mark Twain had a sad tone. No, that's not good enough. If my 6-year-old son can say it, then chances are you're going to want something more advanced. Well, his purpose was to expose the problems in the 1800s South. Some possible themes, and there are many more, but this is just a visual for you. Friendship, religion, race, morality, and ethics, yada, yada, you can read. Drugs and alcohol, I would totally avoid that, because that's really not something that I think is going to support your essay. And it's something that you shouldn't even do in life. So, lesson learned. Thesis. Make sure you have a solid thesis. I've given you 2 examples. Mark Twain's use of blank, blank, and blank create a blank tone in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Make sure you cover the theme. Or Mark Twain creates a blank tone that reveals the theme of blank through his use of blank and blank. Those 2 blanks are literary devices. Okay, since you've crafted your thesis, now let's double check to make sure that you've identified the tone and the theme. Think of it this way. This planet represents tone. And then this little rocket represents all of the literary devices that Mark Twain used in order to reach this tone. So we can have word choice or diction. We have different literary devices. We have other things like that that will help create that tone that supports and develops the theme. Do you see how they go hand in hand? Now's a good time to check your materials. Do you have 2 to 3 examples per paragraph? Totaling 9-ish quotes. If you don't, it's time to ditch the tone and theme and start with another one that has more support. So double check that now. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm impatient. Let's check it out. Look at my examples. Now, don't use my examples because that's just cheating, and that's so unoriginal. And what if yours are better? They will be. So map it out. Figure out your tone, your theme, your purpose, and figure out if it all works. I selected disapproving tone. Mark Twain creates a disapproving tone through religion, characters, conflict, and friendship between main characters. I'm brainstorming, remember? Hypocrisy. This is my theme. Being hypocritical. Saying one thing and doing another. Just like saying, you guys shouldn't vape, yet I go outside and vape and stare at you from outside of my classroom. Which would never happen because that's just gross and weird, but whatever, you get my point. So the Bible and the religion in the book teaches humans to be good to others. Now follow my logic here. Again, I'm just brainstorming and laying this all out so that it makes sense before I get to the writing process and figure out I've spent all of this time for nothing to work. We don't want that. Okay, so the Bible teaches humans to be good to others, right? So Widow Douglas and Miss Watson own a slave. That's Jim. Okay, if they're such civilized people and they abide by the Bible's rules, then why do they enslave another human being? Okay, so then Huck, who is uncivilized, befriends Jim. And that's totally in accordance with the Bible. You're loving another human being. You're doing unto others as others would do unto you, right? Okay, so they become friends. They go on a journey, and he commits a crime for basically stealing someone's property. Okay, one of the 10 Commandments. That's not good, but he almost turns in Jim because he wants to feel like a better person, a better moral person who, according to these religious standards, would be a good person. But he decides not to turn him in because he feels that being a good person to Jim is worth going to hell for. And of course, if you are a human being with a good conscience, you know that that is the quote-unquote right thing to do, even though 1800s Southern society would say it's wrong because a slave is property. But a human being is not property. So do you see what Mark Twain is getting at here? Through Huck's uncivilized or unsocialized behavior, he sees that through his innocence, that Jim is a person, and Jim deserves to be treated like a human being. And that is something that the Bible would support, even though the interpretation of those in the South would say otherwise. You following my logic? Good. All right. So what literary devices or motifs, and remember motifs are things that help carry out the theme. So we've got irony. So Mark Twain pokes fun at religion or like even religious beliefs through Jim and all of his superstitions. Going to show that like you're kind of ridiculous for believing in these superstitions, but doesn't that kind of resemble what religious beliefs or doctrine would be, you know, the equivalent to for those in 1800 society? And then of course Huck consistently comments on how doing right makes him feel bad because he's been taught that right is wrong. And that's irony working right there in the situation. And of course, it's dramatic irony because we as the reader can see that just like in my last example with Jim and Huck being friends and Huck not turning him in, that's dramatic irony. We know that that's right, but 1800 society thinks it's wrong. Also, Mark Twain uses diction, which is word choice, to help develop the tone. That is a little arrow. I don't know why it came out like a little dot, but whatever, that's an arrow. Diction leads to tone. Tone is always created by word choice. And you can remember Edgar Allan Poe and how we had a dark tone that was created by use of words like melancholy and brooding, etc., etc. So Twain's use of careful word selection. So in Huck and Jim's dialect, we talked the other day about how that's extremely authentic. According to Southern tradition, in the colloquial terms or the slang that they use, that exposes the lack of education and civilization, which basically means that they haven't been socialized or educated. And Jim is especially hard to understand, even though his words are often very wise. He's hard to understand because he doesn't know how to speak correctly. We've also got biblical allusions. Those are the references to things from the Bible. We have King Solomon, David, and Goliath. These stories help reveal things about social stature through kings and dukes, and then David and Goliath and the battle that ensued and how it's a battle to do the right thing, and it's often a big monolithic task. And then of course Moses, when and here's a quote. I would have quotes for all of these, of course, but just for example's sake. When Huck and Miss Watson talk about Moses and how she wanted to talk about her book, the Bible, and he doesn't give any stock or care to dead people, because if they're not alive, what lessons do they have to teach us? Which is kind of a funny story, and I'll tell you a story about Caleb and that situation later on. But anyway, this is an example of how Huck helps, or how biblical allusions and Huck help develop this idea of religion and hypocrisy in Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. Okay, so now is the time to map it all out. This is where you get some creative freedom. Whatever works for you may not work for someone else. So I'm not going to give you another graphic organizer. I do have one that will help you organize your thoughts. But if that doesn't work for you, do what works for you. Figure out if you want to use an old school outline, if you want to go just bullet points, if you want to go in chronological order, if you want to number it, if you want to put a bubble map together, if you just want to write it out and then clean it up later, I don't care. Just do something that helps get all of the information out and organized so that you can see if you've got a solid paper in the works. Now, get to work. I want to see you typing. I want to see you using all of your resources. I don't want to see you plagiarizing. That is not cool, and that's going to get you in trouble. Organize it, make sure that you feel good in all of your materials, and cite them correctly. Otherwise, again, that's academic dishonesty, and we don't want that. Also, you'll be getting class participation points while you work diligently so that I'm allowed to conference with your other classmates. Don't ruin it for them. We need to get this done in 100 minutes, and it will go by quickly. So get this done. And remember, you got this. You've done enough writing now in your educational journey and in this class that you should be able to put together a solid essay. Remember all the things that you have been taught and look at those resources. We learn them for a purpose. They're going to present themselves in every piece of writing that we do. Make me and yourself proud. Don't forget, when you're putting it together, put it in a Google Doc. Make sure that you have the appropriate heading. Make sure that you have a title. Make sure that it is an MLA format. And also, title the doc, right up here, last name, _ HuckFinnLitAnalysis. Thank you. And remember, if you have any questions, you know where to find me.